Sonny. You've always known that.
Drop the gun and get on the ground.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. My name is Vinny Apicella, and we are here. Today is December 26th, 2022, one day removed from Christmas Day. I want to wish everybody out there a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I know I forgot to mention that last year. However, I do want to go ahead and again say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. It's been a long week of emotional highs and lows. We do unfortunately have to report on something that really is an upsetting and downer as we went into Christmas week. Back, I want to say on Wednesday, Sonia Eddy, who is better known as Epiphany Johnson from General Hospital, passed away at the age of 55. Apparently it was, as far as I know, like early in the morning or overnight. Basically, from what I've heard, back in 2017, she did have a heart attack while on vacation. And, you know, I mean, there could have been a number of factors that led to it. I know she did have diabetes, so it could have been a complication from diabetes. She was overweight. She was a smoker. Although I think she quit smoking. I can't remember if that's the case or not, but you know, it could have been a number of things, but either way, there's no reason to speculate. I just want to send our thoughts and prayers out to the family, friends, and fans of Sonia Eddy. I wonder how General Hospital is going to handle it. You know, we've never really seen, I mean, outside of like Alice, we know that Alice, the actress that played Alice, did pass away. I want to say it was maybe 2021. However, they never acknowledged it. Like they basically just said something like she was like off screen, but never really acknowledged it. And then also, you know, General Hospital is generally pretty good when they do their tributes to past, you know, characters or past members of the General Hospital family that passed away. Although they didn't really do a tribute to Alan Quartermain, who was played by Stuart Damon. I wonder if there was some kind of bad blood there for some reason, but they just never really recognized it. So I don't know. But again, we'll see within the next month to month and a half how they're going to write her out of the canvas. I really don't think they're going to recast Epiphany. She was a major player for over a decade. You know, she was very close to Sonny and Jason, and, you know, and then she was in the relationship with Marshall, and she's just taking her MCATs about, you know, becoming a doctor and getting into, you know, getting into medical school to become a doctor. So last we knew in, you know, November, based on storyline, she had gone to take her MCATs. So I honestly don't know how they're gonna write her off. I would assume it has to be an off-screen death, you know, something like that, because they can't just, you know, recast her. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's just sad and heartbreaking just lose someone so young. 55 is really, you know, it is really young nowadays. So again, thoughts and prayers to Sonia Eddy. At the end of the one of my favorite songs from General Hospital from you know, from YouTube is her rendition of You're Not Alone. So we're going to take a break right now, and I'm going to do a tribute to Sonia Eddy by playing You're Not Alone Anymore from the Nurses Ball. And she's sang it numerous times, but definitely one of my favorite songs. And I just wanted to, again, send my thoughts and prayers out to her. Again, I don't own any of the rights. Just basically playing it right off of YouTube. I'll be back.
You're not alone. You're not alone anymore. You're not alone. You're not alone anymore. I know you think there's no way out, like you've been living in the dark, but you don't have to feel alone. I know you're reaching up for the sky, and you keep searching for that light, but you don't have to search anymore. We'll be the hands to hold you up. We'll be the eyes to help you see. We are here. We are now. We are one. You are the strength inside our hearts. You are the reason we believe. We are here. We are now. We are one. You're not alone. You're not alone anymore. You're not alone. You're not alone anymore. We'll be the hands to hold you up. We'll be the eyes to help you see. We are here. We are now. We are one. You are the strength inside our hearts. You are the reason we believe. We are here. We are now. We are one. You're not alone. You're not alone anymore. You're not alone. You're not alone anymore.
Alright, so that was off of the Twitter page of Jeannie fans of Jeannie Francis, of course, owned by General Hospital. None of the trademarks are mine, but that was Sonia Eddy as Epiphany Johnson saying "You're Not Alone." One of the recurring songs from General Hospital that's been on the Nurses Ball basically every single year since it returned back in the early 2010s. And from what I know, the Nurses Ball is coming back again in April, so I wonder if there's going to be a nice tribute at that point as well. But really sad to hear that, you know, she passed away. So again, rest in peace. Thoughts and prayers go to your family, friends, and fans. Back now to get on to some news of Port Charles. Obviously, last week was the week before Christmas, up until Friday's Christmas episode of General Hospital, in which I have to say Friday's episode was actually really cool. One of the better written shows that I've actually seen in quite some time. The storylines were great, but leading up to it, you know, during the week, Spencer kind of called out his father to, you know, Nicholas, to, you know, get back there, you know, and he didn't want to move back in. But he did go ahead and Nicholas told him that, you know, that he served Ava with divorce papers, so they were getting divorced. Spencer obviously was happy about that because, you know, the whole purpose was to get Nicholas and Ava to, you know, in their marriage to break up and go their separate ways. However, with that said, you know, Nicholas also went out and said, you know, no, I'm, you're going to be having a new baby brother or sister, and saying that, you know, Elizabeth was pregnant with, you know, with his baby, and, you know, that kind of could potentially cause a rift between Spencer and Cam. I wouldn't mind seeing Spencer go right to Elizabeth, because at the same time as Nicholas was telling Spencer that, you know, Elizabeth was pregnant, Elizabeth was telling Ava that there was no baby, that she had a miscarriage. So they kind of got to get their story straight, or just come out with the truth. I mean, nothing would really... See, the only reason why Nicholas wants to hide Esme is because Esme's carrying his baby, right? So he wants to take care of the baby and send Esme away. Honestly, at this point in time, it's better off for him to come clean. Of course, Esme would go to prison for her crimes and have the baby in prison, but then Nicholas would go to prison for, you know, unlawful imprisonment, considering he's had Esme up in that, you know, up in that tower locked away for the past, you know, what, 4 months at this point. You know, so he would end up going to prison too. I mean, obviously Marcus Coloma has been let go from General Hospital, so and he refused to, you know, to participate, to act, you know, to do his final 2 scenes, or his final 2 shooting days, or whatever the case is. So, you know, there's room to write, you know, to bring in a new Nicholas and kind of write him in. I mean, if that's how they're going to do it. I don't know. I'm at a loss as to how they're going to go ahead and do that. But with that said, I wouldn't mind seeing something to that effect, you know, because lo and behold, Finn and Elizabeth weren't necessarily the best of chemistry in terms of a relationship. You know, they were starting to get around. Elizabeth needed to be single, and I get that, but as a mother of, you know, single mother of 3, that's hard enough as it is to make ends meet. She's a nurse, which it's a great job, you know what I mean, but it's not it's not something that's gonna, you know, I mean, she's been a nurse for years, so let's just say in a perfect world she's getting a yearly cost of living increase. Cameron's working now, so she's barely making ends meet. You know, but she's got to take some time for herself. She's got to be able to say, hey, you know, she's still not over Franco, right? Because she had these episodes, and then all of a sudden her, you know, her memories of what she did in the past with Reiko and her father's cheating, and how, you know, her parents tried to brainwash her to forget about it, right? And all these memories are starting to flood back. So it's something where she needs to be able to get her life together first before trying to share it, right, with somebody else. And, you know, Finn, I don't know. The character Finn is an enigma to me, right? Michael Easton can play fantastic characters, and clearly this is what, his 3rd or 4th character? Yeah, his 4th character, basically, in Port Charles. To be honest with you, I would much rather see Dr. Finn get called away to Doctors Without Borders again, you know, and then come back as, you know, John McBain. I mean, I think that was probably his best character. John McBain from One Life to Live, obviously, coming over from the interview. Last we know, he went off to work for the FBI and hasn't been heard of since. And that was, God, probably about 12 years ago. So, you know, because that's when General Hospital, ABC, had the, you know, the lawsuit with Prospect Park. But now that Prospect Park is, you know, kind of went by the wayside, ABC got back all those intellectual property trademarks of the characters from One Life to Live and All My Children. So I would love to see them kind of, you know, bring some of those characters back. Because Dr. Hamilton Finn, like, I mean, granted now, he does have the family with Violet. He's got his brother as Chase, and he's got his father on the canvas now. So he does have roots. It's just, I don't know, the character, I don't know. He's just kind of dry, right? He doesn't have, he has multiple layers to him, and his layers are starting to come out. I think with the relationship with Elizabeth, he's trying to kind of set the boundaries and keep the boundaries when it comes to Cam, and when it came to Cam and Jake and Aiden, and the whole not stepfather, but just kind of the new adult in the relationship, right? You're trying to keep that together and parent his daughter, and he's a single father. He's a doctor, so I mean he's making it in the six figures, I would assume. But I just don't know what it is about that character that just doesn't sit right with me. Like, it's almost maybe because of his voice. Like, to me his voice makes him a better cop, right? That like a Batman type of deep voice, because he actually could make an awesome Batman with that voice. But I don't know. I would much rather see him as John McBain, but that's just me. And I would like to see Elizabeth kind of find somebody that treats her right, even though Finn was treating her right, and he was giving her space. But I don't think that she's ready to face that. I don't think that she's ready to have that, relationship with Finn, knowing what her father did, with Reiko, and the fact that she's the one that threw Reiko down the stairs. That storyline kind of ended like a fart in church. It really did, because build it up for so long. She sees this woman, and we know that Jeff was a serial womanizer, and she sees this woman, stay away from my father, and throws her down the stairs, and just like it went over like a fart in church. That's all I could say. It's like it didn't really go anywhere. Like, yeah, we saw Jeff and Carolyn for one day. We saw Jeff come back a little while longer, but outside of that, it was the end of the story. Like, was the blow off the fact that Elizabeth is going ahead and seeing Laura and Scotty, and what she said on Friday's episode. And, I was worried about the relationship I didn't have with my actual parents, but these are the parents that are here, and Laura and Scotty have always been there for her. So was that the blow off? Was that the whole thing where Elizabeth is finally realizing that her biological parents didn't have her best interests in heart? But like, where does it go? Like, Elizabeth blaming herself for Reiko's death. Okay, she threw her down the stairs, and then because of that, she needed a blood transfusion, and that blood transfusion is what gave her the Blackwood syndrome. And so in a roundabout way, yes, Elizabeth did cause her death, but outside of that, no. I mean, the blood transfusion technically, and the fact that she made the choice to sleep with her, so it's a chain reaction, right? So Elizabeth can't blame herself. You want to go a step further, Jeff can, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. I am Vinny Apicella, and through the magic of recording, I am actually recording this now, this next section, on January 4th, Wednesday. So thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. And this has actually spanned a couple of weeks. It has been a long couple of weeks for me, which is why I'm recording this next part more than a week later from when the show actually started. It's been a long week with work-wise. Also, I am now an uncle of a human baby. The 22nd of December, my niece was born. So I've been helping out my sister a lot. Her being a single mother, not to give out too much personal information, but I am helping her out as well as work-wise. So it just happens that I just haven't had an opportunity to record. So we're going to kind of pick up. Last I know that I was talking about the Elizabeth situation and how Elizabeth was kind of realizing that Scotty and Laura were more parents to her than her real parents. And it just is something that I'm happy that Elizabeth kind of realized. Going forward, kind of fast forwarding, we did have a whole another week of General Hospital, as well as another day or two. Well, another day, I should say, being Tuesday the 3rd. I'm not going to go into that until next week. So I'm not going to really go into too much detail because I don't want to give out any spoilers to anybody who has not watched it yet. Although, if you follow Twitter, you pretty much know the spoilers anyways. But I do want to go into what last week was leading up to New Year's Eve and Brit's big birthday party. I want to say that I really enjoy the scenes where a lot of different characters interact. You know, whether it's a wedding or a funeral or a court case or a party. You know, they always, every so often, they do have that. Like, what I don't get, though, is after Brit left, right? After Brit left, I don't understand. Or no, that's going into yesterday's, so we're not going to get into that yet. But we see that Jocelyn is being cornered by the Port Charles hooker, which, you know, this is kind of the most drawn out. Like, don't get me wrong, a serial killer is a serial killer, and I get that, but they have to be able to put the kills back to back to back to back, not one kill, two kill, you know, one attack, two, you know, one kill, two kills, then an attack, then another attack, and then wait like 6 weeks before, you know, because by then, especially in TV and soap opera world, where the time frames kind of, you know, overlap and they're not day by day like normal, you know, lifetime, normal life, it kind of gets to the point where people forget about it, right? Like, especially in today, like, I'm all for a long-term storyline. Right, I'm all for long-term storytelling. When you have, you know, going back to wrestling, of course, when you have The Undertaker being put in the casket by Yokozuna at Royal Rumble in 1994, and then by November, you know, because The Undertaker goes off TV for a while, and then you have Ted DiBiase come out bringing his Undertaker and everything, and, you know, after a while, you know, you get The Undertaker scaring Yokozuna, and then by November of 94, at the Survivor Series that year, you have that rematch casket match. So that was a long-term storytelling, right? And then The Undertaker and Kane, how they had that whole feud and every Bray Wyatt, the whole White Rabbit thing, you know, really wasn't very long-term, but it was at least, you know, 3 months or so. But in today's society, you don't have the attention to be able to keep that going because of weekly TV, and in General Hospital's case, it's daily television, right? You have to be able to keep it going. Yeah, you know, and yeah, they kept saying, oh, well, we got to find the hooker, we got to find the hook, we got to find the hook killer, we got to find, you know, Esme, because they keep thinking it's Esme. We as the audience knew from the very beginning, or not necessarily the very beginning, but at least somewhat quickly, that Esme was not the Port Charles hooker. She was being kept in, you know, in the tower at Cassadine Island. So we as the audience knew it. So for the people in Port Charles, which, okay, great, keeping with continuity, they didn't know it was Esme. They still thought it was Esme. And as a matter of fact, you know, Spencer and Trina still thought it was Esme up until now. And then, you know, of course, Elizabeth blurts out, oh, well, it couldn't have been Esme, because she knew that Esme was being, you know, and then she had to cover her tracks, and even Cameron doesn't think it's Esme, you know, and Spencer said, no, well, you know, it's like, I don't know if Esme, you know, I don't know if she would be that much to kill, and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's just amazing to me how the long-term storytelling in this one just kind of ebbed and flowed, and it ebbed for so long that it had to be a big reveal. It had to be a big reveal. This is going to be released today, Wednesday the 4th, so I have the information of who the quote-unquote hooker is, unless it's another swerve. But, you know, it kind of went over like a fart in church. So for those of you who don't know, and I'll probably recap it next week when I get back to my normal Monday release dates, okay? The Port Charles hooker was revealed to be Heather Weber, okay? And seems to me, and I'm going to kind of bring this up now, is that it seems to me like it was a last-minute decision, right? You know, one of those things, and we hear it in wrestling a lot, plans changed, pal, where I don't even know if Allie Mills was under contract at the time when they started the killings, right? I'm not talking about on TV, but when they started filming the killing scenes with Port Charles Hooker. You know, was the end game originally going to be somebody else? Was the Hooker supposed to be Esme? Was it supposed to be somebody else and they just changed their plans because Heather finally came back onto canvas? You know what I mean? So, I mean, now granted, in television time, they could have started, thinking they were going to have somebody come back and play and then cast them. I get that. But in order for me to have more of a shock value that it being Heather, they shouldn't have shown Heather on TV until the reveal, right? So by having Heather be in General Hospital with that flesh-eating virus, which, okay, could have been a precursor to the toxin that she used on the end of the hook, but where would she get a toxin from, right? A snake venom or whatever. Like, being locked in Darkham, and then, getting into that, accident with Anna and the prison transport, and going to Spring Ridge, where would she get the access to the snake venom, right? That doesn't make any sense to me. And now that she's, back on the canvas, it would be different if they had said 6 or 8 months ago, right? Back in like March, before the killings even started, if they had the idea they were going to be recasting Heather or bringing back Robin Mattson or recasting Heather Weber, if they had said in March or April, Heather Weber escaped from Darkham, right? And then forget about it. And then the killings start. And then all of a sudden, in January, they're going to reveal that Heather's the killer, right? That, to me, would have been a better setup. They wanted to... It seems to me like they wanted to go ahead and put put Heather in that role, because I think, honestly, Heather and Ryan think that Esme's the hooker, right? So, for Heather to say, oh, well, I'm going to protect my little girl, because now we know that Heather is Esme's mother, right? So, could it still be a tandem? Could it still be more than one person? Or could Heather be a red herring, right? I just feel like it would have had more of a shock value if the first time we saw Heather back on canvas was when she took off the hood and took off the mask. That's in my opinion, and I apologize for any spoilers that I'm giving, because I know there are a lot of people that binge watch the entire week on a Friday or Saturday. So I do apologize if there's a spoiler there, but I needed to get that out. And I'll talk more about it next week as we keep going forward. But anyways, we did have a lot going on in Port Charles last week. It was actually a full week of shows. They didn't preempt General Hospital on Monday the 26th, like I thought they would, but they didn't. Clearly Sonny and Nina knowing Britt's secret, and then Liesl telling Britt that she told him. It's one of those things where I'm glad that Liesl told Britt, and I agree that it's not somebody's information, but after Britt coming through and delivering the baby on Christmas Day, because obviously we're jumping all over the place here today, pal, so kind of keep up. Christmas Day, the Christmas episode, which was aired on the 23rd, Friday the 23rd, had Britt had Sasha fixing up the motorcycle, which we didn't know coming from any time previously up until now that Sasha knew how to do anything automotive, right? I mean, Sonny comes there, sees her in there, trying to fix it up, and then Sonny gets in to help, and it's all for Brando to get it done before the new year. I get that. That was great. That was nice. Sonny has done stuff, most guys know a little bit about mechanical work. I don't know about fixing an engine on a motorcycle, but I don't know anything about that. I mean, the only thing I know about cars is that I know I've had a lot of cars break down on me, and I learned from those breakdowns what has to be fixed and not necessarily how to fix it, but I have learned how to diagnose what's wrong sometimes. But, you know, so Sunny and Sasha fixing that up, and then Britt getting stuck because she spun out in the storm, and then them driving riding the motorcycle. Cody, or was it Austin? No, it was Cody that called Britt that said, hey, we need your help. And they, you know, they came over, and, you know, Austin making the phone call to help Maxie get to Canada to fly out to go see Georgie, and, you know, taking the boat. Like, okay, I would love to know the geography of how close Port Charles is to wherever she got to get to in Canada. Like, wouldn't a boat ride be, I mean, unless it's a speedboat, but in the middle of December, you know, Christmas time, I would think, especially up in northern New York where there's a snowstorm, there's got to be some kind of ice forming, right? Because I don't think it's an ocean. You know, I'm sure it's a salt water, but if it's a lake or if it's something that's just, you know, one of the Great Lakes, I would think it's starting to freeze. So it's got to be slow paced. Like, I'm thinking they really crunched a lot of time there, especially with, you know, and I know it's TV, but with the, you know, landing in Vancouver instead of Portland, you know, I'm glad it worked out how it did, how, you know, Spinelli and Georgie took the flight and got stranded. They got stranded in the Vancouver airport together. It all worked out. Always in television, that, you know what I mean? Only in television could it work out like that. In all reality, Maxie would have gotten to Vancouver while Spinelli and Georgie would have landed in Toronto. You know what I mean? So it just makes sense that... So that actually makes a good question. If a plane has to do... Now, granted, they took off in Canada, right? I don't know about Georgie and Spinelli, if they took off in Portland or not, but... or thereabouts. But if a plane makes an emergency landing in a foreign country, like Canada is technically a foreign country, right? Would you still need to have a passport in order to, you know, like go into the airport? You know what I mean? Or do you get put into a holding cell because you don't have a passport because you're not planning on being stuck in a different country? That's just how my mind works at times. But that all worked out, and I'm glad. I want to see, you know, but then this week, or last week, I should say, coming up to New Year's, Spinelli was nowhere to be seen. So where was Spinelli? You know, if Maxie's putting together Britt's birthday party and her and Brad are working together, where's Spinelli? Why wasn't Spinelli there, right? And I could probably understand that Britt has some bad feelings with Spinelli or whatever because of the, you know, society setups. But, you know, it's like, if Maxie's really going to be with Spinelli and that whole thing, I don't know. Maybe it would have been awkward with Austin there, and who the hell knows? I honestly don't know why Spinelli wasn't involved in that party. That's my thought. But a lot of this week's focused on Britt, you know, and then the actual party itself, and them having a drag queen come in and, you know, be the MC, which, okay, you know, whatever, it's 2022, or, well, 2023 now, you know, let them go with that. You know, obviously, you wouldn't want to put a Chippendale-style dancer, although the waiters were all, you know, topless men. I probably would have preferred topless women, but that's just me, right? But, no, seriously. The fact that Maxie and Brad were able to pull that together while not necessarily having the best friendship, it actually worked out, right? And, you know, the first thing they agreed on was the topless, you know, waiters or hosts or whatever. You know, and then they had the drag queen come in, and then they did karaoke. They actually had a drink that the girls over at Pier 54 replicated on this week's episode, the Britch. It was somewhat altered. But it was great. It was a great scene. I like having a lot of people there. You know, Spencer and Trina showed up there so that they could be seen together as a couple to try to draw Esme out. Liesel got up to sing. They didn't show the song. I'm assuming it's because they may not have gotten the rights to show the song. Like, they probably had it taped and then they figured out, oh, well, we can't get the rights, so we can't show it. From what I heard, the song that Britt and Brad did, they got the rights to show that at the very last minute. So that's from what I've heard from, like, Perry Shen interview or something. And, that was a really good performance. And I don't know who was lip syncing and who was not. But so, I mean, it was a great episode. And I really enjoyed it. I'm going to miss Britt. Obviously it's her swan song. And I don't know how they're going to write her off. Judging by yesterday's episode, I'm unfortunately upset with how it looks like they might. I don't know, right? I mean, I don't know. By all intents and purposes, maybe they'll be, won't be as fatal as I'm looking at right now. And more on that next week. I'm going to try to keep the spoilers down. I just had to bring up the Heather Weber thing, right? Because it could have been written a lot different, a lot better, right? But that's just me. That's my thought and idea. We're still mourning the loss of Sonia Eddy. Like I said, I like you heard earlier in the episode, I did play You're Not Alone Anymore, one of her renditions, and it seems the song that she always sang at almost every nurse's ball or wedding or funeral. And just a sad thing, All right, so yeah, it's sad that Sonia passed away, and all thoughts and prayers and condolences go out to her fans, friends, and family. Again, we're still reeling from it, and I want to see how they're going to actually write her off, or write her out. 'Cause, did she film anything saying that she got into med school and that she passed her MCATs? You know what I mean? Like, I know she was in med school, but I want to see if they actually come out with something saying, oh, they find the whether she did the scenes beforehand, or if they afterwards they're filming something, they notice something in her mailbox or something saying the results or whatever. I don't know how they're going to write her off. They can't recast her. Epiphany is not somebody, she's a legacy character, even though she was the only one of her family, right? She had a son that worked for Sonny at one point in time, but for the most part, Epiphany was a legacy character on her own. She's been there since early 2000s, right? I think it was like 2003, maybe? And she was a regular for a while, contract regular, and then she dropped back down to recurring, and but she was always there for the wisdom, for anybody who needed that kind of wisdom, right? So with the fact that she's just no longer with us, how are they going to write her off? Are they going to have her die off screen, or are they going to have her go to a different hospital for medical school, or are they going to have her find a family member? Right? I've heard these things, I've heard these different ideas from other podcasts, so none of them my own. But she can't be recast. So if you don't want to necessarily kill her off screen, there are other ideas. But my thought is, maybe just use the real life. I think Epiphany herself, like Sonia in real life, was struggling with diabetes. So, it could be that she just had a major heart attack, or she was found passed away, or, I'd hate to think that they would make her a poor Charles Hooker victim, off screen, right? Just like the same thing with killing Luke off screen, right? And I have a feeling Luke's not dead, and I have a feeling that they're gonna have Anthony Geary come back for one more episode around the 60th anniversary. But at the same time, I really, with Epiphany, I hope that they do right by her. I hope that they give her a great send off, just like Days of Our Lives did with Aniston, was it Jack Aniston? The character that played Victor on Days of Our Lives, and John Anderson, not Anderson, John Aniston. He recently passed away, and so they did a good tribute to him this past week on one of their episodes on Days of Our Lives. And yes, I have actually been getting into more Days of Our Lives, to the point where I've been watching it daily. And here's the thing, I have to point this out. First of all, if the powers that be at ABC, Disney, decide to move General Hospital to a streaming-only service, a streaming-only show, whether it be on Hulu or Disney Plus, either one, it doesn't really matter, okay? If they make that decision to be streaming exclusive, I would love it. I would like it, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because then you don't have to worry about preemptions. You don't have to worry about, our idiot president, excuse me, our president coming on and preempting, the show for, however long it's going to be, right? You don't have to worry about, some big news story or weather story preempting it, right? You could just watch it on Hulu or Disney and you're done. And you don't have to worry about it. Just like, for example, this past Monday, being the 2nd, I know, based upon the normal scheme of things, I'm not really talking about this week's shows, but on the 2nd of January, there was no episode of General Hospital. It was preempted because it was the observed holiday, but it was also because of, college football, right? And the people that, first of all, they could put college football on ESPN. Not many people want to see college football. Not many people want to see, NBA during the week or the NCAA. I know the NCAA tournament's been on CBS for most of the existence, but still, there has been sometimes it's on ABC and nobody really cares. At least in terms of the people that watch soap operas, right? And not to mention it's during the day. But anyways, the point of the matter that I'm trying to get at is, if it's on a streaming-only service, you wouldn't have to worry about preemptions. You could just do your 5 episodes a week, and then you don't have to worry about, well, okay, this was supposed to this day, but we're going to push it off for this day in America, but Canada, you're going to get a rerun because Canada actually saw, you know what I mean? Put it all on the same streaming platform, and then everybody gets to see it all over the place. You might need a VPN in other countries, but for the most, you know what I mean? So you go ahead and put it there. Days of Our Lives had a new episode on Monday. General Hospital didn't. End of story. Right? You wouldn't have to worry about preemptions. Okay. So with that said, I do want to bring up to the point that I'm still getting into Days of Our Lives. There's actually a storyline going on now that I'm actually really interested in. The only thing I will say that's a drawback to Days of Our Lives sometimes is that sometimes they'll have like 2 or 3 days of the storylines going, and then they'll abruptly switch to like 3 different storylines, and you're kind of lost, right? So there could be a little bit better editing, in my opinion. But I will say this: Wally Kurth, who plays Justin on Days of Our Lives and Ned on General Hospital, on both shows, he has very strong-willed wives. We know on General Hospital his wife is Olivia. And then on Days of Our Lives, his wife is Bonnie, and she is a strong-willed person herself, right? So I do like the similarities, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. Even in different universes, Wally Kurth has the best lifestyle for a man in 2 strong-willed wives, right? But anyways, so I'm actually getting into a storyline of how Stefan Demera, who is played by Brandon Barash, who General Hospital fans know is Johnny Zakara, how Stefan Demera was brainwashed. First of all, he was kept on ice. Okay, so he was dead, but he was cryogenically frozen. And then he was brainwashed because the guy, I forget his first name, but last name Lee, wanted to marry Gabby, who was Stefan's wife, I believe, at the time of his quote-unquote death, or girlfriend at the time of his death. And also, he brainwashed, or he injected Gabby with something and brainwashed her to forget that she ever loved Stefan. and how, you know, it all had to do around the business of Demera Enterprises, I believe. And Stefan's brother EJ was it was a proponent of this because he wanted to keep the CEO-ship, where the CEO title went from Stefan to Gabby when Stefan died, and EJ wanted it, so he pulled a power move, and Stefan had to bring back his. It has a lot to do similar to what's happened in the past with ELQ. So all the storylines on soap operas, for the most part, are the same. Very few are very different, unless there's a lot of supernatural, like I've heard on Days of Our Lives with the devil coming back in Marlena. But I do recommend, if you have an opportunity and you watch Peacock, right? If you're a WWE fan, you have Peacock, watch Days of Our Lives. It's on every day. It's the new episodes put on at 6 a.m., and it begs the question that maybe General Hospital should take the same route and go directly to Hulu or Disney Plus. That way, you know, and the other thing is, like, now they haven't necessarily gotten to the episodes that were done specifically for Hulu, for Peacock yet. Because it's, from what I know, Days of Our Lives is on a 6-month backlog. And because, I mean, they announced back in, November, that Steve Burton signed on to Days of Our Lives. He hasn't started showing up yet. You know, they switched over to Peacock only back in September. So this being January, it's only been 3 months. So there's still 3 months of showings that have actually, you know, we're still set for NBC before they move to Peacock. So we haven't gotten to the Peacock exclusive episode. So we'll see when that happens. Now, does that mean that, you know, maybe there were scenes that were shot that put in elsewhere, or scenes that were reshot that were put in, like, I know Days of Our Lives back last month or the month before had a threesome. The first time in daytime history, right? They had a threesome. A man and 2 women. And, you know, it was great. I think it happened because it happens, right? It's a lifestyle that people do have, and, you know, it happens. Why can't it be on soap operas? I mean, they've finally gotten into gay relationships and gay marriages, and, you know, there haven't been too many lesbian relationships in General Hospital. I mean, obviously you had Brad and Lucas and, you know, Felix and that whole triangle of gay people on General Hospital. We haven't had much lesbianism, except for Christina with her bisexual tendencies. But now on Days, there is an actual gay married couple, Will and Sunny. And then you have a lesbian couple, and I don't remember their names. I'm very sorry about that. I haven't been watching long enough. But they were the ones that were involved with Alex, who was part of the threesome. So it is something where Days of Our Lives is a little bit more progressive in that aspect. And I think that should General Hospital's writers become a little bit more progressive based upon, and I'm not saying, you know, there is obviously a transgender character on General Hospital, Terry, and it's, you know, because it's actually a transgendered actor on the show who's fantastic, right? Cassandra James. You know, but I don't necessarily know how, like, they haven't broached the subject in terms of Terry dating Yuri, right? Or even Chet for that matter. It seems like Terry's relationships happen basically off screen, right? So I'm not exactly sure how they're going to address that situation, right? Because, I mean, in all reality, there are still people who, and I'm not going to use the word phobia, because I don't necessarily believe phobia is the correct word, but it's people that don't agree with those lifestyles, right? And I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm just saying that they're out there. There are still people who don't agree with transgenderism. There's people that don't agree with homosexuality. And, you know, it's a reality. And it doesn't make them hateful. It's just they don't agree. If somebody doesn't agree with your choice of lifestyle choice, move on. It's, you know, it's like, why waste your time trying to get somebody to see your point of view, right? People are entitled to their own opinions. and I know I'm getting into a rant. I'm trying not to get into politics here. But the fact of the matter is that I would love to see how GH is going to address it. Because it's something that happened in real life. If, you know, and maybe a different character than Yuri, right? Maybe Chet comes back from Chicago and, you know, and Yuri and Terry break up or whatever. They get together and Chet's going to be a full-time character on the show, right? Well, when does Terry come out and say, you know, just to kind of let you know, I was born a man? You know what I mean? I mean, don't you think it's something that has to happen? I mean, I'm going to put that out there. In daytime, you know what? If you don't listen to this show on Spotify, I recommend you go over to Spotify and listen to this, because I'm going to put up a poll on this episode number 14. Do you think that daytime television and their shows should address transgenderism, especially General Hospital with Terry's character? In Terry's relationship, should it address transgenderism? Yes or no? I'm going to put that poll up, and we'll see how it goes. Anyways, moving on. I'm not going to get into too much WWE news today because it's been so heavy with soap operas and with General Hospital. You know, I will say that, you know, I've heard that January 2nd, not January 2nd, but January in the 20th, one of the days of Raw, Cody Rhodes is coming back. Maybe it's the 22nd. I have to check the dates here. But Monday to the 23rd, from what I've heard, Cody Rhodes will be returning to the WWE after his pectoral tear injury. So that's going to be something good to look forward to. Now, I made a statement on Twitter yesterday that I can't believe that I've ever said. Now, for those of you who don't know, and maybe do know, I'm a huge fan of the NWO. I've been a huge fan of the NWO since it started in the 90s, right? 96, when Scott Hall made his way through the audience on Nitro, and that was Memorial Day 96, which kind of sucks because the way WCW filmed their shows, and, you know, especially their syndicated shows like WCW Pro and whatever, I went to a WCW taping at Universal Studios in, I think it was April, either March or April of 96. But because it was a 6-week turnaround time, the show didn't air till June. That was in the middle of when Hall and Nash invaded WCW. I was so mad. Like, I saw Ric Flair on that episode of WCW Pro. Right? I was so mad because I would have loved to have the foresight to bring a sign for the Outsiders. What could have been. But anyways, I've always been a huge fan of the NWO, to the point where on some of my handles my handle on Discord is NWO for life. But I've always been an NWO fan, to the point where even this year, my mother got me one of those Funko Pop bobblehead figures or whatever of the NWO, Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And, you know, my Secret Santa at work got me a hoodie with the NWO logo and Hogan, Hall, and Nash on the back. So I've been a huge NWO fan. I believe now the Bloodline is a better faction than the NWO for a couple reasons. One is that it's being done the right way. It's not, you know, it's family, and I get that. So they're not going to keep adding more people unless they're family. So the addition of, you know, the Usos and Solo Sikoa makes complete sense. Sami Zayn had to work his ass off to be trusted to be in the family. Paul Heyman, you know, the wise man, he helped Roman Reigns become the Universal Champion, right? And his advice, and the fact that he's worked with the Samoans for many years, you know, he was the manager of the Samoan SWAT team in WCW back in the early 90s. So that's a perfect fit. And the Samoan SWAT team, Afa and Sika, Samu and Fatu, right? Roman Reigns is Samu's son. I think. No, Sika's son. Sorry. So, and then the Usos and Solo Sikoa are Rikishi's sons. So, you know, Rikishi being Fatu. You know, so could we see Rikishi possibly come back at to kind of, again, interfere in this Bloodline storyline? But here's the kicker. We're also hearing about The Rock, the People's Champ, possibly coming back for WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. That match doesn't need a championship, so if they're going to do that, they have to get both titles off of Reigns. I don't necessarily buy, or I don't foresee them taking the title off of him in a conventional way, which could hurt the rub for somebody, unless it's somebody who's already over. I don't want to see Riddle win the title. I don't want to see Seth Rollins win the title. I wouldn't mind seeing Cody Rhodes win the title, right? But Cody Rhodes needs to have that pinfall over Reigns. So I've also been hearing rumors that Reigns is going to work both nights of WrestleMania, because obviously WrestleMania is now so big as 2 nights, right? So I've heard that he's going to work both nights. He'll defend the Universal title on night 1, defend the WWE Championship on night 2, or vice versa. You know, so I don't know how they're going to work it, or where they have, like, if they have whoever wins the Rumble, right? And I've heard Cody Rhodes coming back to win the Rumble. You know, because if you remember back in 2002, 21 years ago, Triple H came back, you know, right before the Rumble, you know, to Madison Square Garden Raw. Ended up going on to win the Rumble that year and main event WrestleMania with Chris Jericho to win the title, which again was 2 titles, the Undisputed Championship. But that match also had Hogan and The Rock on it. That card also had Hogan on The Rock right before Jericho and Triple H. So I don't know how they're going to work it. I mean, I've heard that thoughts are being pushed around. Maybe it's a ladder match, right? Maybe it's a ladder match that Reigns is involved in, and, you know, someone comes down to thwart, you know, maybe it's Kevin Owens winning. I've heard Kevin Owens against Reigns at Royal Rumble. You know, so maybe they do a ladder match the next pay-per-view, right? And Reigns is, you know, he's like, okay, well, I'll do this, but I'm only putting up one. Because you're on Raw, I'm only putting up the WWE Championship, not both titles. That way you get one off, right? And you have Cody Rhodes win the Rumble, Cody versus Kevin Owens. No. Because you would have to do Cody versus Reigns for the Universal Champion. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. They booked themselves into a corner by having this freaking undisputed title and the titles being together. I don't like that. They should have never done that. Same thing with the tag titles. How are they going to get the tag titles off of the Usos? You know, FTR's contract with AEW is coming up in April. Could we see FTR come back to the WWE to feud with the Usos? But you've got so many talented tag teams now. You've got the Street Profits. You've got the New Day, no matter how much I can't stand the New Day, but they're also not NXT. Brooks and Jensen, they're going to be coming up. Pretty Deadly is probably going to be coming up to main roster. You've still got the Alpha Academy. You've got the Viking Raiders. So you've got a tag team division. Now you just got to build one of them or 2 of them up big enough to the point where they could actually have, besides the New Day, you've got the Street Profits, who are probably on the par with the Usos, right? Even though Montez Ford had been out for a little while. But you got to build the Viking Raiders up. You got to build Alpha Academy up to the point where they're looked at as viable contenders for the Usos. I've also heard that possibly Solo Sikoa could be the one, or actually Freddie Prinze Jr. put this out into the universe. I'm going to kind of echo it. It's going to be Solo Sikoa turning on the Bloodline. And then he's going to, you know, go on the Rock side. The Rock is the rightful head of the table. Obviously, if the Rock comes back, we know Roman's going to win. Roman needs that rub, you know, to be the true head of the table now that he's on a condensed part-time schedule. So, you know, and we know the Rock will only come back for the one-off, maybe for leading up. He's not going to be back full-time. And where does Brock fit in? You know what I mean? I've heard Brock versus Gunther at WrestleMania, but would Brock really go after the Intercontinental Championship? I don't know. I don't know about that. But remember, Triple H is at the helm, so things could happen. Things, you know, if you want, you know, Gunther has been putting a lot of good relevancy on the Intercontinental Championship, especially in his matches with Ricochet and Braun Strowman. And now you got Ricochet and Braun Strowman kind of having this mutual respect for each other, which is going to lead to some kind of a feud, I would assume. You've also got Sheamus in the mix now. And Sheamus has had a Hall of Fame career. I mean, he's also often, in my opinion, overlooked because he is somebody that you never think of as like the world champion caliber, but he has been fantastic in this second wind of his career, right? I mean, think about it. When he came in, he was the ECW champion back in the mid 2000s, right? And then he comes through, and throughout 2010 to 2020, he was a part of the great tag team with Cesaro as the Bar, multiple time tag team champion. Reinvented himself again, and now he's with the Brawling Brutes. You know what I mean? And he's been having as he says, banger after banger after banger of matches, and just fantastic to the point. Even with the match with Gunther at Clash of the Castle, fantastic. And I like how they're doing a lot more European people going after the IC Championship. It is really intercontinental. It's supposed to be North and South America, but you know what I mean? Like the fact that it's going with a lot more European people. Whether it's Gunther or Sheamus or Drew McIntyre, right? I really like that. I really like how Triple H is building better characters. Although I do need to talk about something that happened on SmackDown this past Friday that I'm really not happy with. And maybe it's because I'm listening to Jim Cornette too much. Bray Wyatt and LA Knight. I feel so bad for LA Knight, who is fantastic, but he's being wasted with this whole Bray Wyatt, Uncle Howdy feud thing, whatever it may be. Uncle Howdy coming in and giving the Sister Abigail to, or attacking Bray Wyatt, and then go crossing over to Raw. And Alexa Bliss is now getting swept up again in the mind games of Bray Wyatt with that White Rabbit logo flashing on the screen and her going into a trance and attacking Bianca Belair and just losing her marbles, so to speak. I hope she's having fun with it, but I also don't like the fact that LA Knight is embroiled with it. Like, it's not like, okay, I'm going to say this and it's going to be very hypocritical of me. When I was younger, I loved the Undertaker stuff. I loved all the supernatural stuff. And I loved the fact that he could shoot fireballs and lightning out of his hands. And, when he rose to the heavens after the 94 casket match. And, they were able to put the quote-unquote view from the casket on this big screen. The Undertaker rose from the dead and talked. And, and it's like, that stuff was great when I was younger. But now that I'm an adult, I don't really like the Bray Wyatt stuff that much. I don't think it really... I mean, I don't know if necessarily has a place in today's wrestling. The Bray Wyatt and the Uncle Howdy, and how the supernatural is affecting the brainwashing of Alexa Bliss, and now LA Knight is embroiled in this thing, and there's people that are attacking him, and he doesn't know where they're coming from, and he finally gets away from that Maximum Male Models Max Dupree crap, and then he comes back as LA Knight, who's arguably one of the greatest talkers in the business. And now he's saddled with this, and they're going for the Royal Rumble, a pitch black match. What is that? What is the pitch black match? Is it going to be dark in the arena? And, is it going to be a cinematic match like the Firefly Funhouse with Cena? You know what I mean? So I'm not entirely sure how that's going to look. I'm going to stay open-minded about it, but I'm not sure how that's going to look. Let's see. Then we had the return of John Cena this past Friday on SmackDown to team with Kevin Owens against Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. And Kevin Owens picked up the victory over Sami Zayn. So, it definitely helped with the ratings-wise, and it helped in general of, having Owens take up the pin instead of Cena. So we'll see where that whole thing goes. But I gotta say, big thing I've heard too. I've heard that they're starting to put the parts into play about bringing the Hurt Business back together. Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and MVP who were great in the COVID era, you know, the empty arena era with the Thunderdome. And they were fantastic at that point in time. And, you know, then they broke up in January of 2022 when, you know, Bobby turned his back on them. And, you know, and then eventually MVP turned on Bobby. But they've been planting the seeds, especially with MVP going to talk to Adam Pearce about Bobby Lashley last week on Raw, or a couple weeks ago on Raw. And then him talking to Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. And Bobby's change in attitude recently. I wouldn't mind seeing Hurt Business and the Bloodline. Could you imagine that? Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin team up fine with the Usos, and you have Bobby Lashley against MVP. Bobby Lashley against Roman Reigns. MVP and Paul Heyman. But then leaves Solo and Sammy. You're not turning Kevin Owens heel again. Are you going to would you turn the Bloodline babyface, or you keep Roman completely out of it? And, you know, it's just Solo and the Usos against, you know, Lashley, or I don't know. Or, you know, because you're going to end up having the Bloodline in multiple storylines. Sami Zayn is going to be in a storyline with Kevin Owens. We already know this. You know, the Usos, who are they going to be in the storyline with? Would it be, you know, Cedric and Shelton, or would it be somebody different? You know, I'm honestly not too sure where they're going to go with it, or if they're going to go with it. So I would just say keep an eye on keep an eye. You know, they're making Raw and SmackDown must-see TV again, and I really like that because you have to tune in, whether it's on Hulu or live. You have to tune in to watch to see whether or not you're going to get, you know, see the Hurt Business back together and what the Bloodline's going to do. And all I got to say is that I really like the direction that Triple H is taking the company. I really like the direction of how, you know, the writing is better. And since hiring that guy for the long-term continuity storylines from Marvel, from Marvel, I must say it again, from Marvel, I love it. I'm happy with it. So anyways, I want to thank you all for listening. My name is Vinny Apicella. I am the host of Suds in the Squared Circle. You can follow me on Twitter at @theApicellaSuds. Follow the show on Twitter at SudsSQCirclePod. Follow on TikTok at Suds_squared_circle. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to record this while I'm thinking about it. And don't mind the sound. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to record this now. And this is going to be simulcast on TikTok. All right, so thank you for watching Suds in the Squared Circle podcast, or listening, I should say, to the Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. My name is Vinny Apicella. You can follow me on Twitter at @theApicellaSuds. You can follow the show on Twitter at SudsSQCirclePod. Follow on TikTok at Suds_squared_circle. Follow on Instagram at Suds_squared_circle. Email me, Vinny which is VINNIE, at sudsandsquaredcircle.com. Our website is www.sudsandsquaredcircle.com. And buy our merch, sudsSquareCircle.threadless.com. I hope you all have a great week. And we'll be back next Monday, which would be the 9th, January 9th. We'll be back right here on Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. Have a great week, everybody.